Hi, we teach GCSE here at Elisa's Tutorial School, Kids Learn Fast, and one of the books that we guide children through is a Kestrel for a Knave. And here we've got two versions, and here's the film version. I love stories where humans and animals connect. Humans and any animals, birds, fish, turtles, bears, gorillas, King Kong's one of my favourites. I love this book only because it reminds me so much of growing up in Yorkshire and the language that's used. And I find that teaching children here that have been brought up in London, they don't know some of the words. And so it's really delightful to show them those. But what the point I'm making is that children need to get used to different language, classic language in the old books like Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and in books like this, the colloquial language of a region and sometimes dialect. So I'm going to read you a little bit from A Kestrel for a Knave and point out a few of the words. So the houses came up as a link of black cutouts against an orange background. Lighted windows made a sequence of coloured squares along the bottom of the shapes, but this sequence was broken by the sudden illumination of a bedroom window offset from the lighted window below it. Billy reached the houses and ran up the snicket into the cul-de-sac. Now, when I grew up, we lived on a cul-de-sac and there was a little snicket that came up from the main road. So when we got off the bus, we'd go up the snicket and get onto our cul-de-sac. Obviously, you weren't allowed to go there if it was dark because it was really dark with no street lighting. And if that was the case, and especially in the winter when we came off from school, the snicket in the summer made it really quick to get home. But if not, we used to have to go up the main road, round at the top to the roundabout, enter the cul-de-sac from the main entrance. And a cul-de-sac is a road, a road that houses lay on in a circle. So the cul-de-sac goes all the way around. So you go into the entrance and you drive all the way around, and my house happened to be at the furthest end from the cul-de-sac. So I used to love running up the snicket. So if I just go up the road, it'd take absolutely ages, and then getting around the cul-de-sac. But the snicket made it a piece of cake. And anyway, so Billy reached the houses and ran up the snicket into the cul-de-sac, into the orange light, which stood in fuzzy halos round the heads of the three lamps grouped there, and round the heads of the lamps alternatively spaced up both sides of the avenue. Their living room light was on. Billy ran down the path round to the kitchen door and pressed the handle, paused. Now, in Yorkshire, we always went into the house via the kitchen door. We never go into our house via the back door here in London. But in Yorkshire, we used to all use the back door. And when we had visitors, they'd come in the kitchen door. No one would come in the front door. In fact, the front door was only used on special occasions. I think I went out of it when I got married. That was probably one of the only times we used the front door, but it was a funny thing, the front door, compared to the back door, the kitchen door. And pressed the handle, paused, then allowed it to spring back as he turned away from the door and tried to see through the darkness down the shed. Slowly he walked towards it, slower and slower, almost stopping, then sprinting the last 10 yards. The door was still open, the shed was still empty. When Billy burst through from the kitchen, his mother and Judd were half standing at the table, startled up by the clatter which had preceded his appearance. When they saw who it was, they both sat down again. "Where is it? What thou done with it?" Just glanced up at him, then back to the comic which was propped up against the sugar basin. His mother shook her head. "And where have you been in this lot? Just look at you, you're sodden." It was warm in the room, the fire was high in the grate, the radio was playing and the tea was on the table. "Go and get them wet things off, then come and get some tea." She opened a magazine and folded it inside out along the spine. "And shut that door, Billy, there's a terrible draught behind you." Billy stood there, still breathing heavily, looking at Judd all the time. "I said, where is it?" Obviously, they're talking about the Kestrel. Now, do you know what sudden is? I think you will have worked it out from that. Wet through. And it's language that Northern people use, and that is used a lot in books. And if you study GCSE English, you have to get used to the dialect of different regions. So if you're going to have one from the Northeast, you're going to be really stuck because they use totally different language. It is like going abroad. You have a completely different language, and it's wonderful. I love it. It's one of my favorite accents and favorite dialect. But you do have to study it carefully to understand it, because they speak in ways that people out of the region wouldn't understand. Anyway, read this book. It's brilliant. Bye.